There are now reports these creatures are leaving the remote forests and
Its eyes lit up and flashed light back to me from the light of my vehicle. That was pretty disturbing because that's not a natural thing that happens with humans.
We had this big dusk to dawn light out there beside the house, and I just happened to look over there, and there was this thing standing right directly under that light. But this had, his face looked kind of like a leather or something.
In the moonlit depths of America's wilds, where ancient forests whisper secrets, Bigfoot stalks the shadows. From Washington's misty hilltops to Kentucky's haunted hollers, chilling encounters and shocking footage create fear and wonder. This is not just one instance, but many experiences and witnesses. Could this be the proof we've been chasing for so long? In the shadowed area of Alaska's untamed wild, where the Hoh River rushes through the old forests, tales of Bigfoot grow darker. No longer confined to remote peaks, these massive creatures are coming closer to human settlements, their presence marked by chilling encounters shared on Travel Channel. In 2018 and 2019, two incidents, one near Glen Allen, another on Fairbanks's outskirts, left witnesses trembling, their stories etched with primal fear. Footprints too large for any man and fleeting glimpses under moonlight fuel a haunting question. Is something massive watching from the trees?
Its eyes lit up and flashed light back to me from the light of my vehicle. That was pretty disturbing because that's not a natural thing that happens with humans.
On a crisp September night in 2018, Ellen V pulled into her farm's driveway near Glen Allen. Her headlights caught a hulking figure. Its eyes flashed back, glowing unnaturally as its fur-covered body leaned toward her. Standing head to toe in hair, it dwarfed her, radiating menace before disappearing and appearing right beside her while she stayed frozen in her car. Ellen called her boyfriend, sobbing, overwhelmed by dread. Her partner, armed, rushed out, but the creature fled faster than any human could. The next day, Ellen found her horses in chaos, kicking and rearing, having smashed through their pen, behavior unseen before or since. Returning to the spot, she photographed a 20-inch footprint, dwarfing her size 8.5 shoe, etched deep in the marshy ground.
reveal the photographs that Ellen took. One footprint measured around 20 inches long, literally dwarfing Ellen's size 8.5 foot.
The image still haunts her to this day, a reminder of feeling small and insignificant against an otherworldly force. A year later, in October 2019, Keith Lindsay and his grandson Joe biked through a rain-soaked forest near Fairbanks, seeking adventure. Crossing a muddy patch, Joe spotted something chilling. An 18-inch footprint, 6 to 8 inches wide, sunk 3 inches into the bog.
This is freaking crazy. Look at this.
It's 6, 8.
Keith, a nurse of 35 years, marveled at its size. No human foot could match it. His 200-pound frame barely dented the mud, suggesting a creature weighing 600 to 800 pounds. Keith noted its solitary nature. The next step, a 5 to 6 foot stride, landed on solid ground, leaving no trace. The realization hit hard. Something massive had passed through. Keith felt watched, the forest's silence turning sinister.
6, 800 pounds or more.
Probably stepped here, it looks like a right foot, and kept on going.
At Oregon's North American Bigfoot Center, expert Cliff Barkman analyzed the Fairbanks print. 5 toes and a crisp heel marked it as flat-footed, unlike human tracks, with a depth suggesting immense weight. The single print, he argued, fit a Sasquatch's 8 to 10 foot running stride, too vast for the small muddy patch to capture more. As Alaska's wilds creep closer to its cities, these encounters, etched in mud and memory, whisper a chilling truth. Bigfoot may already be too close for comfort. In the wild frontiers of Canada and Alaska, where ancient forests hide tribal secrets and ice-crusted lakes boom with wolf howls, Dr. Robert Alley, a lifelong outdoorsman turned anthropologist, bridged myth and reality. From boyhood wanderings in Winnipeg's boulevards to solo weekends at a remote cabin teeming with moose and beavers, Ali's bond with nature ran deep. Native tales of Sasquatch, once dismissed as folklore, developed into urgent truths through plaster casts, eyewitness whispers, and his own midnight confrontations. Over decades, these encounters revealed not just elusive giants, but shapeshifters blurring the veil between worlds. Ali's awakening stirred in the 1970s Manitoba wilds as he shares on A Flash of Beauty, Bigfoot Revealed.
Professors at the time would say, this is just myth, legend, and folklore. Others said, no, there are actual tracks, plaster of Paris tracks that Conservation Officer Bob Uchtman at the Paw, Manitoba cast. So at Manitoba back in the 70s, it was one government that at the base level, grassroots level, actually started to show evidence.
The conservation officer Bob Taman cast real tracks in plaster, defying professors who branded them cultural artifacts. Ivan Sanderson's Oxford-forged books on global hominids hooked him further, planting seeds of Neanderthal survivors in North America's shadows. By 1973, Ali's internship at a native hospital in Edmonton flooded him with honest patient stories, gifts of gratitude revealing Sasquatch as flesh and blood kin to the Nuatka or Haida people, not mere bedtime warnings. The pivot came in 1975 on Vancouver Island's South Shore, during a romantic getaway at Upper Campbell Lake. After 10 rainless days of pristine logging roads, pine cones and pebbles pelted his tent every 5 minutes, trackless pranks he blamed on a local teen. At midnight, flashlight in hand to fend off the intruder, Ali swung the beam 90 degrees.
So there I was on the south shore of Upper Campbell Lake on Vancouver Island, just west of Campbell River. And in my flashlight beam, I shone my light on what I expected to be a high school kid playing pranks that had managed not to leave tracks. For the last 10 days, there'd been no rain, and every little mouse and deer and elk track was showing in that fine dust that you find on logging roads on the east side of Vancouver Island and the Olympics.
There, 7.5 feet tall under a Douglas fir, stood a dark brown hair-covered being, broad-shouldered, ape-like yet eerily human, staring back for 3 heart-stopping seconds. It bolted, shattering trees like Rice Krispies in a 60-decibel frenzy, the din waking his companions. Feigning calm, Ali stoked the fire, claiming an elk or bear, but sleep evaded him. His mind raced through anthropology. Not Neanderthal, not Java man, perhaps Meganthropus erectus, swollen to Sasquatch size across Siberian ice ages, eternally wary of wolves poaching winter kills.
Just from the jaw reconstruction, he did a reconstruction, not full size, of a Meganthropus, Homo erectus paleojavanicus from Java. My thought was, holy smokes, if any of these guys got north, up into Siberia during the last 4 ice ages, they're going to double in size, become Sasquatches, and perpetually hate wolves that are trying to steal their winter live or die.
This theory crystallized. Giants forged in isolation, hybrids haunting coastal tribes like the Kwakiutl or Tlingit, trading venison for blankets before colonial muskets soured the peace. Ali's Alaska years deepened the enigma. Southeast encounters hinted at Kushitka, shapeshifters mimicking otters, or even friends, as a Marine Highways officer witnessed a Sasquatch morph into a 5-foot river otter mid-swim. A Saxman youth saw a white-furred giant dissolve into his buddy's form at a parking lot's edge. Tlingit elders, like the late Nina Petrovich, clarified, Sasquatch are earthbound, but Kushitka? They can be anything. Friendly traders or cannibalistic wraiths vibrating beyond human sight. Tracker Fred Roll logged 350 to 400 Alaskan run-ins, 0 benevolent saves, no cougar-slaying heroes, just rock barrages and window-peering threats. Yet, hybridization lingered. Lighter-skinned coastal Sasquatch, per Colville and Schwennick tales, walking among humans as stick Indians. Ali's sequenced BC hair sample, analyzed by Melba Ketchum, yielded unknown DNA, closure for 9/11 victims, silenced for Bigfoot by academic gatekeepers.
Melba did great work. She got closure for so many people after 9/11, when her particular short nucleotide polymorphism techniques allowed her to identify remains that would have otherwise been completely lost. And I think there was some reaction from the old guard in speaking to the journal Nature, shut her down, shut this paper down, it doesn't belong.
Infrared repels them. Audio unmasks mimics, owls with bison lungs belting 60 decibels. Government misdirection thrives, from jammed rifles to dismissed suits like Audrey's in California. Ali urged grassroots vigilance. Record voices for Olympic project prints evade three-letter scrutiny. As raven prayers rise over totem-carved shores, one question shadows the mist. If Sasquatch walks among us, who or what watches you tonight? In the misty borderlands of Indiana and Kentucky, where the Ohio River moves through the dense forests, a century of terrifying events unfolds. Since the 1880s, wild men and ape-like horrors have stalked these rural hollows, their screams echoing from newspaper clippings to family nightmares. The 1970s brought the Spotsville Monster, a relentless siege on one family's farm that shattered the veil between myth and malice. Over 35 years later, the fear still exists, as we see on Squatch Mafia, as fresh sightings whisper that these shadows never truly left. The saga ignites in 1936, with the Booneville Beast crashing into southwestern Indiana's farms. The Duff family's German Shepherd lay crushed, skull shattered by an unseen force, as screams tore through the summer nights. Towering like a bear yet striding on two legs, the creature left 16-inch footprints, its ape face glimpsed by Ralph Duff before it mauled a police dog in 1937. Armed posses and bear traps failed. By August, the howls faded, but the stench of rot clung to the riverbanks. Decades simmered with UFO waves, like the 1955 Hopkinsville Goblins, before the 1970s unleashed fury. In Pike County, Indiana, the Pike County Monster, a 10-foot black-furred blur hitting 60 miles per hour, stank of cadavers and vanished after a week's rampage. Missouri's 1972 beast hoisted car rears and peered into bedrooms, driving families from homes along the Mississippi. Then, the Hatfield Monster prowled Spencer County, its white fur and skunk smell drawing sheriff's deputies to frantic shootouts. Kentucky's turn came in 1978 with the Fairview Horror, a 10-foot, black-haired giant mutilating a 350-pound steer near Owensboro, its 16-inch tracks reeking of foulness. But nothing rivals the Spotsville Siege, erupting in summer 1975.
We had this big dusk to dawn light out there beside the house, and I just happened to look over there, and there was this thing standing right directly under that light. But this had, his face looked kind of like a leather or something, you know? But its hair was long, its arms was long, and it was tall, and it was covered with, it looked like dark brown hair. Of course, it was night, but he was under that light.
The Nunnally family, new to their haunted farmhouse on Mountain Ridge Road, found chickens vanishing and mutilated dogs, 8 in all, dumped on fields, necks twisted, throats drained without a drop spilled. Terror peaked as Red Nunnally spotted an 8-foot hairy sentinel under the dusk to dawn light, its leather-like face and long arms frozen in the glow. "Hurry, get the kids!" he urged, as it loomed, unblinking. Broad daylight sightings followed, 9 to 10-foot figures with graying reddish-brown fur, broad shoulders squared like elders of the wild. Nights brought sieges, doors rattled, windows peered into by glowing red eyes, stones pummeling the roof. Chickens numbered 250 slaughtered, a horse and goat torn apart while vicious dogs cowered under the porch.
Dad started to call the state police to come out you know, help us out and maybe escort us off the property. And they would come out with their sirens blaring and their, you know, their lights flashing, and the creature would just slip back into the woods until they were gone and then come back out. After 5 or 6 calls, the police stopped responding to our calls. They wouldn't come out and help us anymore.
Police dismissed it as bears, sirens scaring it off only to return mocking. Desperate, 4 armed men scaled the roof, unleashing volleys into midnight shadows. Bullets struck flesh, they swore, yet dawn revealed no bodies, only intensified fury. By April 1976, the Nunnallys fled, the farmhouse razed. Echoes persist. In 2005, a roar scattered wildlife from a ravine, revealing an 8 to 9 foot watcher in an abandoned barn, arm draped on the beam for 30 minutes. Over 400 documented Kentucky sightings fuel the dread, from land between the lakes to the Pope Lick monster. As the Ohio River murmurs ancient warnings, one question chills the fog. What hunts in your quiet countryside tonight? Deep in the swampy heart of southeast Texas, where alligators slink and pines tower over murky creeks, legends of Bigfoot thrive. Jerry the Wolfman Mills, a lifelong hunter, knows these bottomlands like his own shadow. From eerie wood knocks to a giant handprint on his truck, his chilling encounters paint a picture of Sasquatch, not as myth, but as a living, breathing force pacing the thickets. Step into the humid dark, where silence screams louder than howls, and something massive watches. We listen to his experience as shared by Wildman of the Woods. Jerry's first brush came hunting with a friend.
And all of a sudden I heard another one, and all of a sudden there was 3 different directions. And he was adamant, I said, well, I'll be dang, man. So he made one whoop at him and one whoop back. And I said, you are kidding me. Whatever. And we just went on about our business, but, you know, that's in the back of your mind then, you know. A few days go past, we go back out there to go hunting, and we separate, and I'm walking down a wide open levee top.
Wood knocks echoed from 3 directions, answered by a whoop that froze him. Days later, alone on a levee, he spotted fresh egret feathers floating, a bird freshly killed, its neck torn. Something paced him in the trees, matching his steps, stopping when he did. Gun raised, he shouted, but the shadow vanished. His buddy, 300 feet away, faced the same stalker. They found a muddy 12-inch footprint, water still pooling, too big for any man. Jerry knew then this was no bear.
And sure enough, we went back there, and I looked, and there was a footprint about that big and about that wide that I could put my number 12 Red Wing boot down into and not touch the sides, still had water running into it. Every other puddle around there was clear except that one. And that's where it had stepped and crossed over. And I realized then, oh my God, something was really out there.
Years later, in a deer blind, Jerry's eyes kept drifting to a tree line 150 yards out. Against habit, he scoped it. Nothing. Twice more, nothing. Then, a small figure, arms pumping, legs blurring like a roadrunner, bolted across, chasing prey. At dusk, a scream, no owl, ripped from a clear cut. Then, an 8-foot giant, maybe 700 pounds, strode across the road, its toes digging into a rise like it floated. Days later, a massive handprint smudged his truck's dusty window, fingers splayed, testing the glass. Venturing deeper with night vision and FLIR, Jerry's team heard the swamp go dead. Crickets hushed, frogs silent. A branch snapped, steps shadowed them, stopping when they did. No thermal trace, but the quiet screamed presence. In a canoe trip to a storm-ravaged bayou, Jerry and a friend hit a hot spot.
Now, me and another friend of mine, he had discovered this really hot spot that nobody goes into. Since the storms and the dead trees, they didn't go in there anyhow. It's almost impenetrable now. But of course, me and my buddy, he knows where it's at. Let's go. So we went, and we had to take a boat to get to it.
Shapes flickered on fell IR, gaps between trees closing and opening. A limb smashed 20 yards off, their boat dragged ashore, paddles tossed. They fled, lights on, pretending calm, but the message was clear. Too close. These swamps, where natives drew hairy giants on cave walls, hold secrets older than settlers. Creeks are Sasquatch highways, but reservoirs threaten this world, drowning deer, turkey, and Bigfoot alike. Jerry, tied to Twin Rivers Wolf Sanctuary, urges saving these lands. As the bayou whispers and something steps through the dark, one question lingers. Will you hear the knock before it's too close? In the rugged wilds of British Columbia's Harrison Hot Springs, where mountains hug misty lakes and gravel roads twist through dense forests, Sasquatch rules the shadows. Known for the most Bigfoot sightings in Canada, this land hums with eerie tales of hairy giants. A hunter's strange howl, a towering figure on railroad tracks, and native stories fuel the chase. Armed with a camera and grit, Angelo is on the hunt for proof, stumbling on moved wood, a massive footprint, and a rock thrown at his car. He shares his journey on his channel, Exploring with Angelo. Is the hairy man of the woods watching? In 1970, a teen working a logging road near Chilliwack.
I said to Harold, sitting next to me, "What are they saying?" He says, "Sasquatch, Sasquatch." He said, "What's that?" So they pointed ahead, and about 500 meters ahead, there was a big thing standing on the railroad tracks. Now, the two railroad tracks are still there, and the ditch is still there too. And in one step, it stepped across the railroad tracks. It didn't jump. It was upright, and it stepped across the ditch, and then it stopped in the middle of the road.
Saw something unforgettable. A massive figure stepped across railroad tracks in one stride, paused on a wide gravel road, and stared back before sprinting off. It didn't jump, it stepped, he recalls, describing an upright beast too big for a bear. The native crew shouted, "Sasquatch!" and fled, their fear sealing the moment's truth. Decades later, at Sasquatch Provincial Park, strange signs pile up. Near Hicks Lake, a heap of sticks looks oddly placed, not like a campsite prep. A dark shape, tall as a tree, flashes behind a trunk, bigger than any bear, upright, gone in a blink. Bears don't walk like that, the hunter mutters, heart racing, finding no trail or reason for anyone to be there.
Possibly a bear, but on its hind legs? No, I don't think that makes sense. Bears don't walk on their hind legs. They go on all fours. Okay. There's no real trail here, so I don't see why anybody would be back here. I don't see anything.
Further up, near Rainbow Falls, a rock smacks the car's passenger side on a barren dirt road.
Have to stop, but then apparently drive in reverse, and I can't even really turn around. Oh, that's static. Stupid radio. Oh. Okay. Looks like it keeps going.
No trees overhead, no dents, just a loud thud. Moments later, a dark figure moves on a cliff face, too tall for a human, too swift for chance. Bigfoot throws rocks, the hunter recalls from viral videos, pulse pounding as he scans the empty ridge.
It looked like something was moving, but there's a lot of trees out there, so it's like by where that rock is, it looked like someone was up there for a second. Who the hell would be up there, though? That's like a crazy cliff face. What if it's possible that, so Bigfoot apparently throws shit at people? There was this nighttime video that I...
Backtracking to a disturbed spot, the evidence mounts. Wood piles, dragged uphill, form a path-like line, unlike any bear's work. A wet, massive footprint twice the size of a man's sits nearby, fresh in the mud. No animal stacks wood like this, he says, camera shaking. The forest falls silent. No birds, no wind, just the weight of something watching. From native carvings to modern tracks, Harrison's forests whisper of Sasquatch. As night falls and musty odors drift, the question isn't if Bigfoot exists, it's how close he's standing right now. Deep in America's wild forests, where shadows hide secrets, Bigfoot sightings spark fear and wonder. Robert, shaken by his own 2024 encounter, digs into 3 chilling video clips that might prove Sasquatch is real. From thermal shadows in Washington to a leaping giant in Russia and a forest stalker in Oregon, these moments shared on Cabin in the Woods, backed by tracks and expert eyes, challenge doubt. Are these fleeting glimpses the truth we've been hunting? In Grays Harbor, Washington, on October 30th, 2013, John and Ben Brown borrowed a FLIR thermal camera from the Olympic Project to hunt for Bigfoot on their land. That night, just before midnight, they caught a 7-foot, 4-foot wide figure glowing hotter than the nearby cow, but distinct in shape. Tracks, 16.5 inches long, were cast at the site, matching reports of howls and twisted trees. Skeptics point to the camera shutting off, but the FLIR manual notes battery display issues with non-rechargeable cells, explaining the cutoff. Phil Poling, a skeptical investigator, mapped the scene and admitted it could be real. The figure's stillness, a known Sasquatch trait, and lack of profit motive make a hoax unlikely. In Russia's Adygia Republic, January 2015, amateur Yeti hunters filmed a tall, dark figure leaping through snowy woods. Its long arms and flexing back muscles, visible in zoomed frames, defy human motion. Tracks were spotted but not cast, and the clip's raw, shaky quality suggests surprise, not staging.
Где-то килограмм 200 весит. Видел, как он своими лапами машет? Смотри, 2 метра рост. Йо. Я боюсь. Надо отдать эту съемку в НТВ. Чрезвычайное положение. Побежали. Пошли за ним.
The Caucasus, a hotspot for Almasty lore, adds weight, as does the figure's size against trees. Critics cite blurry footage and missing raw files, but no one's claimed tampering in a decade, and the group's lack of fame or gain bolsters authenticity.
The subject also appears to have a natural gait. It looks like it's walking with a heavy, forward-leaning stride that believers argue shows muscle movement rather than stiff costume fabric. When attempting to scale the subject against the trees, even in these highly compressed versions, the figure seems taller and broader than any average human would compared to the surrounding trunks.
A bear in the frame underscores the wild setting. Paul Freeman, a former Forest Service patrolman, filmed a massive figure in Oregon's Blue Mountains on August 20th, 1992. Chasing tracks near Daduct Spring, he caught an 8-foot creature brushing a 16-foot tree, later verified by a game warden.
Oh, there he goes. Jesus.
Freeman's casts, showing dermal ridges and mid-tarsal breaks, stunned anthropologists like Dr. Grover Krantz and Dr. Jeff Meldrum, who called them too detailed to fake.
And so I'm looking at this stuff and I'm thinking, how could it possibly do this? There's too much anatomical detail, which, as I would describe, point out the things that were impressing me. It was like, he didn't have a clue what I was talking about.
Critics question Freeman's past and the shaky footage, but his wilderness expertise and years of evidence collection counter hoax claims. The figure's fluid gait in rough terrain resists costume mimicry. These clips, tied to tracks, expert analysis, and raw context, stand firm against doubt. No fame or fortune drove these witnesses, only a quest for truth. As forests whisper and cameras flicker, one question lingers: is Bigfoot closer than we dare believe? In the foggy depths of Washington's Gifford-Pinchot National Forest, where creeks roar and ancient trees whisper warnings, a chill hangs heavy. Yakima natives call it Skookum Valley, as shown on Salish Sasquatch, and warn people to stay out. Here, campgrounds buzz with Sasquatch hunters, but silence falls when something stirs. Last Christmas Eve, 2 hikers vanished into the wilds, their bodies found miles from their truck, sparking whispers of more than bad luck.
Up here were the 2 hikers on December
24th, Christmas Eve last year, this is where they passed away at. This is right where they were at, and this is right where they brought him out at. So none of us locals can figure out. As soon as we heard this story, even my son-in-law, people I know, we were like, this is absolute crazy.
Audio howls, branch snaps, and a debunked butt crack photo fuel the hunt. But the real horror, unseen eyes in the dark. A burning curiosity drives the search, sparked by rooftop tent scares and fleeting glimpses. Weekends blur into quests. What hurts them? How do they heal? Audio recorders hidden on trails of least resistance capture the unknown.
First night, I'm going to test a theory of putting my audio recorder on this trail right here. This trail is kind of outside of camp, goes for miles. And why wouldn't a Sasquatch use this trail? It's a path of least resistance. So I'm going to put my audio on this trail, just leave it out the first night.
One night, across a creek 200 yards out, a device snags howls that echo human yet bigger, cutting off as phones flip to record. It sounded like it sat right across the river, yelling our way, one hunter recalls. Elk? Wolves? Or something watchful?
We woke up at like 4:30 this morning, and actually I originally thought it was someone at one of the other camps screaming. And then I started thinking maybe it was a wolf or something, but it sounded kind of human-like but bigger. And then when my wife went out to go to the bathroom, I came out, you could tell it was basically it sounded like it was sitting right across the river, like yelling this way. And then as soon as I got my phone out to record, it stopped. Went for an hour straight though.
Dawn breaks with unease. Logs climb to remote stumps. Trail cams primed where a prior setup caught a prowler circling, then bolting with the device. Creep factor spikes near the hiker's fate. December 24th, 2024. Two men, 59 and 37, parked here for a day visit. Dressed wrong for winter, they crossed a flood stage creek, freezing, thigh-high, then plunged through a blowdown no sane soul would. Separated on a ridge 700 feet apart, bodies taken out by ropes and chainsaws through brush.
We had just a little skiff of snow on the ground, and these guys were not dressed for winter conditions.
They were dressed for a day visit, which was their plan.
Yeah, just a day visit. So they had parked up here in this area, and they went down this road right here. And if you guys want to look down there.
You want to go that way?
They were found about 2 miles from this location.
Coast Guard from 120 miles away airlifted them via FLYR, silencing locals. No names released, no why they came answers. FedEx workers from Portland, Bigfoot seekers. The valley's secrecy screams cover up.
Because there's not too many people other than locals that know about this and what's around here and what's going on in this valley. I heard that they worked for FedEx out of Portland, but one guy was 59, one guy was 39 or 37, something like that. The whole thing is just kind of bizarre about really what happened in here.
Whispers turned to speculation. Wrong calls lured them. Natives shun this spot for a reason. No birds, no crickets, just cracks, 3 in a row. Audio yields a rain-soaked howl, analyzed by a military cryptolinguist as high-probability Sasquatch, resonant, too loud for owls, thriving when humans hide indoors. Metallic clangs echo from afar, defying distant camps.
They weren't dressed for it.
I haven't heard any animals at all here.
No, there's no sound at all in here because this valley.
Creep factor here for sure.
I was told
there's a certain creep factor here for sure.
Something's not off.
Yeah.
Because I haven't heard a bird, haven't heard any crickets, I haven't heard.
But we did hear cracks when we came in, didn't we?
Yeah,
we heard 3 different cracks.
That doesn't surprise me. Off to your left.
No squirrels.
The hunt presses on. A butt crack photo, dark shape downhill amid branch breaks, draws a return. Zoomed by an accidental snap from a video switch, screamed Sasquatch. But boots hit ground, a stump plain as day. Always check. They laugh. Though the whisper in the woods mid-hike chills spines. Nearby, an X of high broken trees balances unnaturally, hinting deliberate design. Creeks yield no prints. A walk through water?
That one's balancing on this tree and this one's balancing on that tree. Huh. Very interesting. What if they just didn't follow the creeks but actually walked through them? Because nothing is leaving any prints in this.
Uneventful nights end with pack up, but the forest stirs. The forest is still alive at 2 to 3 a.m. with snaps of thick brush, whoops silencing night. Owls flee for hours, returning tired. Too big for owls, the Guardian mutters after 6 months.
Definitely in the night around 2 and 3 in the morning, there's a lot of breakage. Like heavy trees, like thick brush. It doesn't sound like something that's breaking easy, and I see it in the next day. A couple hours later, if we're lucky, I'll hear the owls come back out. Very, very concerning sounds after 6 months here.
Are you sure they're owls?
Hell no, I'm not sure they're owls. Too big to be an owl.
As valleys fall quiet and howls pierce rain, one question haunts the locals. What claim those hikers, and is it calling you next?
Here it is. But he believed that was a Sasquatch. What I find is interesting is that it's during rain. So was my vocal that I caught in March. It was during rain, like they feel comfortable or something.
This video was shared by the Rocky Mountain Squatch YouTube channel, shared by someone named Kenneth. The morning was calm, too calm.
At the end of the video, I was walking through camp early morning when I felt like someone or something was watching me up on the ridge.
Kenneth, walking through his campsite by Carson River, felt a strange feeling of being watched. It was a guess, an instinct that most of us would ignore. But Kenneth's gut told him otherwise. Up on the ridge, something didn't feel right.
So he zoomed up in there with his cell phone video, obviously, and...
So he pulled out his cell phone, zoomed in on the area, and began recording. Little did he know, he was about to capture something extraordinary. It started off normal, as most strange encounters do. The camera zoomed in, panning slowly across the ridge. At the far edge of the frame, something moved. A hulking figure, muscular and broad, stood there, seemingly frozen for a moment. It was so tall, so imposing, that at first it seemed like it was completely out of place in the wild.
To show you zoomed before I stabilized it, because sometimes it's a little clearer. I mean, he's zooming way up there with his cell phone. There's the...
And then, in a crazy moment that left Kenneth frozen, it reached up with one arm, grabbed hold of the tree and pulled itself up smoothly. What was strange wasn't just the creature's size. It was how fluidly it moved.
Football player-sized person with all their pads and everything on and hoist themselves up into a tree. All right, I'm going to play it.
Despite its size, the figure hoisted itself up the tree like it had done it 1,000 times before. Impossible for a human or any known creatures. Kenneth's daughter, who had been reviewing the footage later, was the first to spot it.
Show you the zoomed-in clip. And then after the zoomed-in clip, I will stabilize the zoomed-in clip. I just wanted...
Initially, Kenneth had missed it. But once she pointed it out, Kenneth realized the gravity of what he had captured. The footage was grainy, but the figure was undeniable. Was this a person? A huge one, maybe. But the way it moved didn't match anything human. Was it Bigfoot? Could it be? No one was certain. But the video was beyond anything normal.
Okay.
As the video zoomed in and stabilized, the figure became even clearer. It stood taller than any man, its shape wide, bipedal, almost like a football player wearing full gear, but without any equipment. And then the most shocking part of the footage.
You're kind of walking around and then boom, up into a tree. It's just crazy. That thing's huge.
It climbed the tree with the strength and mobility of something far more powerful than any human. The zoomed-in, stabilized video revealed the incredible sight once more. The figure's movement was fluid, and the strength it showed defied what should be possible. Whatever it wasn't like anything they had ever encountered before. Bigfoot or not, it's big, it's fast, and it's up in a tree. That was the final thought as the team reviewed the footage once more. But one thing was clear as day.
Very Bigfooty. It's out of the ordinary, unusual. If that's
The truth was out there, and this was a clue, an important one. Kenneth had captured something that, no matter the answer, no one could ignore.
More time. Amazing footage. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for sending this in to us, Kenneth.
Now let's take a detailed look at some real-life camouflage sightings. Encounters that raise eyebrows and questions alike. And topping the list is one from a lone hiker deep in the San Gabriel Mountains of Southern California. It was 2020, and the trail was quiet. The kind of silence that makes you more aware of every snap of a twig. A hiker, sensing something unusual nearby, began recording. From a high vantage point, the camera captures a craggy mountain range in the distance. Then, zoom. The lens focuses on one of the evergreens nearby. And that's when something stirs. Partway up the trunk, something or someone seems to be staring back.
The Southern California mountains are amazingly remote and staggeringly rugged. That area is perfect Sasquatch habitat.
A shape, humanoid in form, emerges from the texture of bark and shadow. There's clearly a head, broad shoulders, 2 arms, and what could very well be 2 legs. Whatever it is, it's perched approximately 15 to 20 feet off the ground, almost as if it belongs up there.
From a high vantage point, we see a craggy mountain in the distance. Suddenly, the camera zooms in on one of the nearby evergreens. Partway up the trunk, something or someone seems to be staring back.
Bigfoot sightings are often associated with Northern California, but sightings down south? Not as common, though not impossible. The mountains of Southern California are steep, vast, and strikingly remote. In other words, ideal territory for something to stay hidden.
There are a small number of credible reports of rather large Sasquatches being up in trees or having been seen jumping down from trees. They have the shoulders, the hands, the arms, they're strong, they can pull themselves up. I mean, humans can climb trees, and Sasquatches are just better built humans, essentially, at the end of the day, way more apey than we are, and we're apes.
Interestingly, just 3 years before this footage was captured, another strange encounter occurred just 60 miles away in the San Bernardino Mountains. That doesn't surprise field researchers like Cliff Barackman. According to him, there are a small number of credible reports of large creatures, potential Sasquatches, spotted in trees or even leaping from them. Their anatomy supports the possibility. Wide shoulders, long arms, incredible upper body strength. Humans can climb trees. Why wouldn't a creature even more ape-like than us be able to do the same? But here's where the mystery deepens. Bigfoot, as the name suggests, is said to be massive. Some reports claim these beings weigh up to 800 pounds. So then, how could something that heavy climb a tree and remain suspended without shattering the branches beneath it? Either we're seeing something incredibly powerful, or this isn't Bigfoot at all. Nestled in the rolling hills of Appalachia, Salt Fork State Park in Ohio has become more than just a destination for campers, hikers, and hunters. As documented by wildmen of the woods, for decades it's been whispered about as one of the squatchiest places in America. The stories here, stretching from the 1800s to modern times, paint a haunting picture of something that refuses to stay in the shadows.
Got this really long, mournful howl. So we got out of the woods, and she asked me what that was, because I'm pretty good at most of the noises that animals will make throughout their lifetime, like throughout their life cycle, I can identify, at least here. And I said, yeah, I have no idea what that was. So she was Googling animal noises, and I said, hey, look up the Ohio howl. And she looked it up, and she said, oh, that's exactly what we heard. What is that? And I said, well, allegedly it's a Bigfoot.
In this segment, Salt Fork resident John Hickenbottom recalls the summer of 2018. He and his girlfriend, now his wife, were out on Parker Road, an area thick with trees and wildlife. The evening was calm until it was broken by a sound unlike anything he'd heard before. A long, mournful howl that rose and fell through the valley. He was a hunter, someone familiar with every cry and call in Ohio's woods. But this? He admitted plainly he had no idea what it was. His girlfriend pulled out her phone and searched online, eventually landing on a clip called the Ohio Howl. Her face went pale. That's it, she whispered. That's exactly what we heard. Encounters like this are common at Salt Fork. John Hickenbottom, the park's naturalist, has spent years studying the wildlife here. White-tailed deer, black bears, even species like elk and beaver that once vanished but have since returned. He points out that Ohio's forests, once reduced to almost nothing, have grown back. And with that regrowth, so too, perhaps, has the range of Bigfoot.
The history of the land use in Ohio, it kind of coincides with the history of the Bigfoot sightings in Ohio. Like most animals here, things like white-tailed deer, black bear, things like that, that if there is a creature like Bigfoot, as the wilderness recovered, it moved back into Ohio.
The legends stretch deep into history. As far back as 1869, reports tell of a wild man in Gallipolis, Ohio, an encounter serious enough for the local sheriff to organize a posse. Even famed frontiersman Daniel Boone is said to have had his own brush with a mysterious creature just across the Ohio border in Kentucky.
That directly has to do with the state of Ohio. It was in 1865 or 1869, Gallipolis, Ohio. There was a wild man attack in Gallipolis that was taken seriously enough for like the sheriff to round up a posse to go look for the wild man. And there are stories from the surrounding areas during the settlement period of Ohio, in the Draper.
And here in Salt Fork, the stories come alive in specific places. At Hosak's Cave, a rock shelter used by native peoples thousands of years ago, hikers have reported strange howls and even footprints. Along the lake shores, fishermen recall nights when massive rocks were hurled into the water, arcing high out of the forest, not tossed by any human hand. Then there's Bigfoot Ridge, a picnic area by day, but by night, a hot spot for strange activity. Families once eating lunch on the grass watched in shock as two Sasquatches calmly walked out of the tree line, crossed in full view, and disappeared back into the forest. More recent investigations captured audio of heavy bipedal footsteps, matching perfectly across multiple recording devices, tracking men through the woods.
We don't really have any evidence of permanent habitation right there. I can tell you that there have been a number of sightings all around Hosak's Cave. Some of them we have found were hoaxed. A guy in a suit, which is a shame because that jeopardizes the integrity of all the research being done.
And perhaps most unsettling is the group camp area, where campers often report feeling watched. Researchers call part of it the bleachers, believing that Bigfoot uses the dense forest as a vantage point to observe humans. Naturalist John himself had his only tree knock experience here, a sharp, deliberate sound in the stillness of March 2021. When he tried to sneak up on whatever made the noise, it seemed to toy with him, moving in perfect counter to his position.
I got a tree knock right over there, right in the woods, and there was nothing there that I could see and nothing that could make the noise. This was March 2021, so it wasn't like there were walnuts falling out of the trees at that point. Later on that night, I had heard some shuffling in the woods over here, and I thought, you know, whatever, deer, raccoon, something, and I thought I'd sneak up on whatever it was, so I got my headlamp and started sneaking over into the woods over there.
Skeptic though he is, John doesn't dismiss the people who come forward. He listens to the old-timers, the fishermen, even the school teachers who swear they saw something looking in their classroom window decades ago. He argues that respect is important, even when the stories sound impossible. Because if nothing else, Bigfoot has become more than a legend. It's a cultural icon, a symbol of the unknown, and even a tool for conservation. After all, if such a creature exists, it means the wilderness still holds mysteries. At Salt Fork, families gather every year not just for fishing and camping, but for the possibility of an encounter. For some, Bigfoot is a thrill. For others, it's a reminder that not everything has been discovered. And for those who've heard the long, mournful howl echoing through these woods, it's something far more real than just a campfire tale. So when the night deepens over Salt Fork and the forest grows quiet, the question exists. Is Sasquatch watching from the shadows, waiting for the right moment to step into view? And there you have it. Encounters from quiet farmlands to the deep forests of Ohio. From chilling vocalizations to shadowy figures slipping through the trees. Each story leaves us with more questions than answers. Was it truly Bigfoot stalking the turkeys, carrying off a deer, and watching from the ridges of Salt Fork? Or are these just fragments of folklore given life in the wilderness? The truth remains hidden somewhere between legend and reality. But one thing is for sure, something is out there, leaving behind whispers, footprints, and memories that can never be explained away. So what do you believe? Let us know in the comments. It began as just another evening in the woods. Grizzly Gaz, a seasoned camper, set out to spend the night at his semi-permanent woodland camp. The air was cool, the light fading, and his dog trotted close behind. He planned a simple night: fire, food, and rest. But sometimes, the woods have other plans. At first, everything felt familiar. The rustle of pigeons, the crack of twigs, even the quiet rain slipping through the leaves. But signs of disturbance soon stood out.
Now then, we're out again in a large, localish woodland where I've got a bit of a semi-permanent camp. And we're losing, well, not losing light, but we'll be losing light soon. Hey up. Wood pigeons found me already. Always wakes me up, that, no matter where I am. Look, there she is, look. Half Enzel.
Leftover trash, broken trees, and even a shopping trolley sat strangely deep in the forest, far from any road. It was a reminder, not everyone who came here respected the land. Still, Gaz pressed on, determined to set up camp before darkness took over. By the time the tent and tarp were ready, the rain was steady. He managed a fire, small but strong enough to cook his meal. The glow of flames lit up the damp woodland, but there was unease in the air. He spoke about gear, shared tips, even enjoyed his food. Yet in the quiet spaces between, something else seemed to stir.
Oh, banging that. It's a shame you're allergic to it, innit, mate? She's allergic to all sorts. I think she's even allergic to grass. So, not right good when we're out all the time, is it? She ends up just scratching for days.
As the night deepened, faint noises began breaking through the steady patter of rain. Branches snapped where no one should be walking. A strange sound echoed, something like a pig, though no wild pigs live in those Yorkshire woods. The dog perked its ears, but stayed oddly calm, as if sensing something Gaz could not see. The firelight flickered as the wind picked up, masking and revealing distant noises all at once.
I'll probably do that in the morning, if not it'll be another video. So, subscribe for that, will you? Anyway, we're going to chill out now, and I'll see you in the morning.
Then came the real unease. Around midnight, heavy steps and movements seemed to close in on camp. The night turned restless, knocking, shifting, and the constant impression that someone or something circled just beyond the trees. Gaz admitted he felt unnerved but tried to brush it off. Was it people out to scare him, or something older, watching from the shadows? The line between wind and willful movement blurred, leaving questions no fire could answer.
And a nice knife with your name on it.
When dawn finally came, the rain eased, and the forest revealed its silence. Gaz stepped out, searching for signs of damage. Nothing clear was left behind, though one stick appeared gnawed, as if chewed during the night. No footprints, no broken branches, just questions carried in the early morning mist. He reminded himself, and his viewers, that the rule is simple: leave the woods better than you found them. Yet the night had already left its mark. For some, these sounds were only wind. For others, maybe deer. But what about that low, pig-like call in a place where pigs don't belong? Was it imagination, or something unknown slipping past the edges of sight? Nights like these remind us why the forest holds its mystery. Quiet, unsettling, and never fully explained.
Kept hearing twigs breaking or branches breaking. You alright, mate? It's alright, chill out. And I heard it sounded like a pig, but we ain't got any pigs over here. In England, well, not that I know of anyway.
So, what do you think? Were these just tricks of weather and nerves? Or did something move through the trees that night? Have you ever walked into a forest at night and felt like the trees were listening? That is where tonight's story begins. A quiet trail, a man with his camera, and the stillness of the woods that soon turned into something far more unsettling. He had only stepped out for a short walk, a cup of coffee still warm in the car, headlights off, the world around him sinking into shadow.
Alright guys, here goes nothing. So it kind of sounded like it was almost as if it was like back there, but there's no actual trail. There's a sign. I don't even know what that sign says, but...
The first sound stopped him right away. A faint crack from the trees behind. Not loud, but sharp enough to make him pause and turn his light toward the dark. The forest seemed alive with quiet movements. Branches swayed through there was no wind. Each step forward carried an echo, and with each echo came the thought, was something pacing with him? His voice stayed low, almost a whisper, as he admitted he had heard something back there.
Oh, I swear I just saw something move. Might have just been my eyes playing tricks on me, but I could have sworn I saw something move.
For a long moment he stood still, listening, his breath mixing with the night air. Then came the first heavy knock, a single strike, as though wood met wood. It rang clear, distant but deliberate. He held the camera tighter, swinging the light across the trees. No movement, no figure, just endless darkness. But the sound told him he wasn't alone. Another knock followed, stronger than the first, and his calm steps turned into a slow retreat.
I wish I had like a stick or something. Oh, there's one. Let's see if that'll actually work. Ugh. Now we just need a good sized tree and test this out. Do some 3-knock shenanigans over here. I guess we can do it on, let's do it on this. This is a nice big.
The silence broke again with a growl, deep and low, carrying through the ground beneath his feet. It wasn't the cry of an animal passing through. This was something closer, something watching. The growl rolled out, and for a moment the forest felt smaller, as if the trees leaned closer around him. His breathing quickened as he whispered into the night, unsure if he had stepped into danger or discovery. A rock struck nearby, sudden and loud, forcing him back another step. Not a stone falling by chance, but thrown with purpose.
Holy crap, man. This just keeps going up and up. I don't even, really have a spot where I can stop. Holy. I wouldn't mind stopping at some point soon, hopefully. I think I might have to take my sweater off. I'm so hot.
The sound cracked against the earth, carrying the weight of intent. He steadied the camera again, his voice trembling now, realizing he had walked straight into the territory of something that wanted him to know it was there. Even as he edged back toward the safety of the car, the forest did not quiet. Another growl stirred, closer than before, rumbling through the trees.
Might as well keep going. I'm curious as to where this will lead us. I mean, I'm gonna assume that it cuts through and goes basically to the other side.
The sound lingered just long enough to remind him that he was being followed. And then, silence. The kind of silence that presses against the skin and keeps you looking over your shoulder long after the path has ended. When he finally reached the car, the knocks had stopped. The growls faded into memory. Yet the feeling remained that something had watched every step he took, keeping just out of sight.
Out of curiosity's sake, because we know this place is haunted, I mean, we just heard someone yelling. I don't know if that was an actual person out there or if it was something else. I have absolutely no idea. We know this place is extremely haunted. We know the story of the Whispering Woman, and we know that somebody was kind of roaming through here a very long time ago, and I have not seen them since. It's literally been years.
Do you believe he walked into the territory of Bigfoot that night? Or could the haunted forest itself be carrying voices that wait for anyone brave enough to listen?
That's all, folks, for our hunt on Sasquatch. Did those footprints, videos, and rock throws convince you, or are you still skeptical? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit that like button if you want more Bigfoot adventures. Subscribe, hit the bell, and let's keep chasing the hairy man together. Keep an eye out for the hairy man.